So I watched John Vervaeke's interview series on like Neoplatonism as a sort of, well, one of the things it was about was Neoplatonism as a sort of common ground metaphysical framework. Hush, computer. That's what I have this phone propped up on. Metaphysical framework for dialogue between different religions and belief systems. And that got me thinking about that idea of like common ground versus a more general common ground versus like a more particular personal individual kind of space, and how these ideas interact and how it can go wrong, both on the level or both in the field of both when applied to like ideas and then also in like society with people. So it reminds me of Fritjof Schumann, of like the transcendent unity of religions, and how he talks about how it's important to keep a sort of level to understand that, and Jonathan Pageau says that a lot of modernity's problem has been forgetting that reality has these sort of levels. Anyway, that if you want to understand the unity of religions, you have to keep in mind that it's like a level thing. Like the unity is up here, and then the different religions are like down here, and I don't know how coherent this is gonna be because I just had like a week of some weird cold fatigue thing that just sapped the brain. I was like, wait. I'm sort of emerging from it, but apparently words are still slow. Okay, so the wrong way to have, it's like an interfaith dialogue, or to see deeper unity, to see unity between different systems, is just to shove everything together, sort of on the lower level of the particulars, and just mix it all together, and just like shove together the particular doctrines, the particular details, and they clash, and they're like from different cultures and from different worlds, and they don't like go together on that level. So you end up with like a syncretistic sort of chaos, which is sort of what I do. So like it's fun sometimes, but as far as if you're trying to establish like an official consensus, I don't know. Anyhow, he says if the unity is like on a higher, more abstract. But I don't like to say abstract because that sounds negative or like it's less real. But he doesn't mean it that way. But the unity is like on a higher level. And so you therefore have a synthesis of both unity, like one primary message that these traditions and religions are getting across, but diversity in each particular religion gets to keep its own sort of aesthetic and its own symbolism and its own doctrines and its own culture separate. And like it's both of those are preserved. And honestly that's basically the same thing as I think Vervaeke's pretty much putting forth with Neoplatonism as this higher, I forgot my notes. Right. This picture and the society, and then when it goes wrong. Anyway, so Neoplatonism is like this higher level, more abstract, skeletal sort of structure that everybody can come up and agree in, while preserving the lower, more particular, individuated level. Like it's both. It's both, which can simultaneously exist. The analogy that somebody used was that the analogy that they used for the transcendent unity of religions thing is like light versus different colors. Each different color is still light, and light is not a color, but the colors of light. If you have to color light like all of them, you get the picture. So there's this kind of like idea of a common ground where people can, or where ideas can dialogue, and then also more like personal space. And then I was thinking of this also, I guess, applies in a literal, like, concrete society. He used the metaphor of Neoplatonism as a courtyard, as opposed to the courtroom of a lot of the kind of hostile discourse that we have today, which I thought was a great way of putting it. It also made me think about a literal courtyard. Because you have a literal courtyard and like some houses. The courtyard is literally like a public space, and the houses are a personal and private space. Or you have like the forum like in the center of the city, and then the houses, and so this is an embodiment of that pattern. Like in a good society would have both of these levels, both of these spaces coexisting, and both levels, space given for both levels. So like at home, you can fully be yourself, you can relax, you don't like have to be super wearing like maybe super nice clothes, and you can take up space, you can leave your things around, or you can celebrate like your family's traditions and such. If you go out, say, into like the courtyard and you're having some sort of public event, or you're just like at the market or something, you put on some set of social conventions that are, in a sense, artificial and like not your most authentic personal expression, but you do it in order to fit into a more general space and just be able to communicate with different people. But, so I guess when it's healthy, we have both of these spaces, both like more general dialogue space, and then personal space, and obviously the most intense of that being just like when someone's, oh, never mind. I was going to say like when someone's alone, but I guess also with close loved ones, so like in a home, if your home is a good home. Yeah. Both of these spaces. Again, you know what I mean. You get the picture. Because this sort of sheds light on how in a society this can go wrong. If this nuance is lost of these being two levels and like two separate spaces. So on one hand, you could have something that would say, okay, cut off all of the particular convictions, anything that might make you not fit with the society and not fit with the other people, we have to get rid of that. Everybody has to be exactly the same in conformity. Basically, you have to live in the courtyard. You sleep in the courtyard. You eat there. Everything has to be public, and it has to all be completely flat, completely neutral. Everyone has to agree on everything all the time. Because otherwise, you would get disheartened. Like, it's just not understanding that these two things can coexist. And if you lose that understanding, it could be understandable that you'd want to like do this because it's a genuine fear, like people not being able to coexist. Or the other way, you say, okay, forget the courtyard at all. Don't ever compromise. Don't ever put on any social graces. Don't put on any artificial like politeness or any kind of rules. Like the whole world is just your home, and you do you just all the time. Or else we will be restricting people's liberties. So both of those come from understandable fears, but they lead to sort of a messy situation. Or the worst of both worlds, which I think is maybe what we could see manifest in some ways around us today, is like a flat system without like the levels, without different spaces, without nuance, of just competing like very individual, very fierce ideologies. So trying to universalize, like the courtyard, their own particular vision in their house. Because there's no like space to be yourself and space to be in dialogue with others. So it's like you have your own personal views, you have to defend these to the death, you can't give any ground. And if anybody else thinks any different, that's like a threat, because there's nowhere to, it's like this flat system of just everybody fighting for territory. It's an interesting pattern. And I suppose this pattern of this courtyard versus houses could be applied to other realms as well, like possibly inside a person. Let me see. basically courtyards and courtrooms, and the understanding of levels, and that we can have and need both common ground and personal